Welcome back to Claimed by Him Season 2. I'm Lisa Keeton, and I'm thrilled to continue this walk with you as we explore faith through the lens of everyday life. From heartfelt devotionals to personal reflections, this season is all about discovering what it truly means to live a life claimed by God. Welcome to Beginner's Guide for Christianity, where faith meets life. We are here to share our experiences of receiving healing in the Father's house through witnessing and testimonies. I'm your host, Lisa Keeton, and we are honored to have Denise Paige with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here and share this story with your ladies.
All
Yes,
righty.
thank you.
Denise is on a mission to help women treat their bodies like the temple it is. She is the founder and CEO of Black Vegan Health and Wellness Enterprise, and she's a certified nutritionist, a personal trainer, and a life coach. Denise is currently working on her PhD in holistic and sports nutrition. And a topic today is God bless me with a divorce. So tell us your journey on this road to divorce.
Yes, and this probably people part is going to be shocked because they don't usually hear God bless me with a divorce because we know God, He's all about marriage. Once where they said what God put together, don't let no man take apart.
True.
But what happened was, yeah, I went into the relationship with the intent for longevity to
Yes.
just grow
Yes.
old and be together, right? And I thought we went in with the Lord,
Mhm.
that was, I thought we was three, him, I, and God. But what happened along the way was they walked away from the Lord, and they abandoned me, not physically but spiritually and mentally.
Right.
And so they became blockage. They had a heart and heart, and they no longer was walking with the Lord. But in that process, I can see it, they couldn't see it.
Right.
We were living a lie. We were putting up a facade. We were Both of us was active in the church. We were getting up, going to church, going to our meetings, being leaders in the church, and just when we get home, totally opposite. Totally
Right.
opposite. I can remember right after the honeymoon, right after the marriage, I was like, what is going on? Actually, the first year was good. Let me just take that back. The first year was good. The second year was like, what is okay? I see a change. I see a change, but I was still very hopeful and believing in what God has put together, right?
Right.
And I was always in prayer, always in prayer, always in prayer for God, God's direction and guidance, not with anything in my mind that I was, uh, exiting,
Right.
leaving,
Right.
just in prayer for a better relationship. Because I know I had a relationship with the Lord, because that's the reason why I did that move, because of the relationship I had with Him.
Yes.
I had
Yes.
already submitted myself to Him, and I was like, okay, this doesn't look like what I experienced in the dating realm. You know what I mean? It
Right.
doesn't look where the shift had come in. And the shift came in because of a layoff that he had, and he had a hard time getting back to where he was at in his job realm.
Okay.
And so that change, that was the change that came about. So but when we were going to church, and like I said, we was going to church, we just had this facade up, but when we came home, it was just like, whew, night and day. And I would just
Mhm.
pray. I think I shared with you, I'll never forget, First Peter 3, chapter 3, verse 7 was my prayer,
Right.
was my prayer for at least 3 years. And when
Mm.
pastor would preach on, I'd be like, oh my gosh. And it was like I would hear it all the time in those 3 years from different messaging, from
Right.
different pastors and preaching and ministers, and or in some kind of worship way. fellowship way. And I was like, okay, Lord, I'm hearing. But I would after the second year 3, I started looking for a place to stay. I was like, I'm not staying here. This is
Right.
not, I can't do this. This not gonna, this not gonna last. I never forget, I went to my leader, the elder in my ministry was a lady. And I went to her and I shared with her, and she kind of sensed something because she would sit back and watch, and she
Right.
said, what I want you to do is stop looking for a place to live. And I want you to trust God and just keep praying and trust God. And I'll never forget, I said, okay. And I did just what she said. I had that, I was like, I'm just gonna follow God's lead.
Right.
And when I tell you that was 2 years later, I stayed in prayer, Father God's lead, 2 years to roll about around. And I'm like, Lord, okay, what is it? It is because I had told the Lord, I said, I'm not going to leave this relationship unless you give me an out.
Yeah, okay.
That's the
Mhm.
only way. If I leave with, and this is honest, true. I said, if I leave without your out, take me, let me
Mm.
perish.
Right.
That's how serious I say, because I want to be in your will, in alignment with what you have for me.
Yes.
I'm in leadership. So all that, this is part of my prayer. This is conversation I'm having with him. And I'll never forget, it was just so, it got really bad. It got
Right.
really bad. And I said, you know what? I had just got back from out of town. And I got home, and that person did not pick me up,
Oh,
wouldn't pick me
wow.
up. I had to
Mm.
have a good girlfriend from church to come and pick me up. And I said, that's okay. And she was in one of my sisters that I would be in prayer with.
Right.
And so she came and picked me up, and I said, you know what? This is it. So when I came home, I said, we need third party counseling. This is what I said. I said, we need third party counseling. In order for this to work, we need third party counseling.
Right.
This person was like, nope, don't need no counseling. I got the Bible, because they were a Bible thumper. They would thump the Bible over your head, but did not apply it to their life.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they would hit you all day long and everybody else, but did not apply it to their life. And the
Mm.
pastor we were serving under was a pastor for men. He preached to men.
Right.
He preached to men. And I said, how can you sit up under this pastor, well-known pastor, and not, and how you missing the message?
Right.
You're not even getting hit over the head with it. It's just falling on deaf ear.
It's what's in
That's
your
what,
heart. Hmm.
exactly, but his heart was blocked.
Right.
So, and I never forget, I said, pride is going to have you left alone. If you
Mm.
don't release pride, pride is a sin. It's going to have you all by yourself.
Hmm.
And so, then listen. So we went before the pastor, our senior pastor, and this is a mega church, and the pastor was asking questions. I never forget, I was in undergraduate, and I had stopped because I was the main source of income.
Yes.
And so I stopped going to school because I was paying for it out of my pocket, and I couldn't go back. Well, I could, but they didn't want me to go back.
Right.
And I never forget, we went before the pastor, and the pastor looked at me because he asked him a lot of questions, like, why have you done this? Are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Because he was out of work. And he was like, I can remember a time when I worked at Greyhound just to support my family.
Family.
You
Right.
you get to do whatever you have to do to support your family.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
turns and he looks at me and he said, you go back and you sign up for school as if he got a job.
Mm.
Okay.
Believing.
He said that.
Believing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I did just that. I signed up and I went back and I finished
Mm, wow.
graduation.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Yeah.
finished. So much animosity and um, disappointment and hate in me because I did just what the pastor said.
Mm.
There was no rejoicing, no happiness for my accomplishment. I'll never
Wow.
forget. And so went back to the pastor And I said, we had another conversation with the lead pastor. Then we got into, um, at that point, I was like, you know what, we need to be in counseling. Because the pastor was just talking to us. I said, we need to be in counseling. And I said, I'm going to stay at my parents' house because he didn't want to do counseling. He said,
Right.
no, we got the Bible. Tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it. Well, no, you are the problem, you know. So you are the problem. So I said, I'm going to go stay at my parents' house until we get into counseling because we cannot fix this on our own.
Right.
So
Right.
when I tell you, Lisa, I went to stay at my parents. Day one at my parents' house. Day three, I took the clothes. I just got back from out of town. Remember, I
Right.
said I went out of town, just got back. So I didn't even unpack my bags. I just took what I had in my bags over my parents' house with the intentions on us getting counseling and
Right.
moving forward with our life. That
Right.
was my whole intention. No. And the whole time, keep remember, I'm praying. I prayed for 3 years and so on. And I'm praying, I'm like, Lord, am I doing the right thing? Is this you, Lord? And every move I make, it was a God move. I did not move like Lord showed me. That's every
Right.
time I move. So when I was going to my mom's house, I was like, Lord, am I doing the right thing? He gave me the sign. Yes, you are. Went over there 3 days later, I'll never forget. I was going home because it was my mom's 60th birthday, and I was
Right.
going home to get some clothes. And locks changed on the house.
Oh,
What?
wow.
How you gonna change locks on the house? I'm still living here. We're still legally married. We're just trying to get some assistance. We're trying to get some
Right.
third party help, right? I never forget that. And I said, ooh, and that my spirit was like, this, you asked for a sign, this is a sign. And I said, wait a minute, what is going on? So that happened. Next day, um, cell phone, it was just things. And the whole time, now I started looking for a place after that. I started looking for
Right.
my own place. And every time I said, okay, Lord, should I sign this lease? Something happened. He do something. Okay.
Mm.
Sign the lease. I never forget. I had started counseling myself. I went to
Right.
the counseling myself, and the pastor was saying, our counseling pastor was like, Janice, be God is showing you. He said, I'm not saying to leave or divorce, but
Mhm.
you're asking for signs God is showing you. It's like every time something happened and I was doubting myself, God would just open up. He would show another one, show
Mhm.
another one. And I was just like, okay, Lord. And I never forget, he said, this is your out. This is your out. He has walked away from me. I never forget that. And I was like, okay. And when I went through all the channels. When I say
Right.
every channel, because I'm in leadership and I want to stay in leadership. I want to go to the next church or stay at that church in leadership. So I'm going to be obedience to what the church requires. And then and be obedience to the word, to the word of God as well.
Right.
So I
Right.
went through every counseling session, and it got to the point where we couldn't be in the room together. So if I came to the church, I had to let the pastors know that I was there. Not that he was violent and anything like that. They just wanted to make sure that I was okay.
Yes.
So went through all of that. Went through all that, and I never forget. We went to what is it? The one after counseling with media. It was another counseling session,
Right.
and where we had to. It's almost like a judge or something like that. I can't remember.
Mediator.
Anyway, yeah, yes, we went through
Mediator.
that. That's it.
Okay.
I never forget. I told the lady, I said, I'm not going back there. God ain't told me to go back there. I'm just being obedient to the spirit and the whole, what God is telling me to do. But God has released me, so I'm not going back there. And so I never forget the pastor came in. She said, well, we got to take this up to the pastor. And I said,
Right.
okay, take it up to the pastor. I said, because I know I have grounds for divorce. I know I do.
Well,
Because
let me ask
everything
you one
uh-huh.
question because anybody listening gonna be thinking, well, God says you can only divorce if there's infidelity.
Well, the church signed off on abandonment.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So there was no infidelity, but he abandoned me
Right.
and because all his actions was abandonment. So they went through that route.
Okay. Okay.
And they went through that route. But what happened after that, God he took me, he isolated me for 2 years.
Hmm.
After that, he isolated me for 2 years because I wanted to stay connected to the church and in the
Right.
church and in leadership, but he isolated me to prepare me because I wasn't bitter. I wasn't bitter at all. I was relieved because I wanted to do it his way. And what I
Right.
want people to get is the weight.
Hmm.
I waited. I did it. I wanted to make sure I was in alignment, and I wanted to make sure that it was from him, not
Yes.
just me. It was from him. And I did, when I say it was 2 year, it was 2 year process before I got the final divorce
Hmm.
because I went through every channel that was required. And
Right.
I knew that I wasn't going to go back, but God said, do it for me.
Right.
And I said, okay, I, I'm obedience to the call. I waited. You release me. I get to do this, and it was a relief because I was faithful in prayer
Right.
and I was still hopeful.
Hmm.
I was very much hopeful because I didn't sign up to leave. And I never forget when my dad came to get my stuff, he was like, he was hurt because he was like, this is not how I gave you her. And I was like, well, and even God said the same thing. He said, this is not how I gave you her.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm.
said, so you get to leave. You get this. I grant you this. And it was hurtful for me too, because it wasn't what I signed up for.
True.
And I didn't expect for that to happen. But oh Lord, thank you, Jesus. What I want, the wait was because I had said in my heart, I didn't think I can get married again, and I
Right.
didn't want to.
Right.
Honestly, I didn't think I can get married again, and I didn't want to because of what took place. And I was so um being
Hmm.
into church and leadership. But the pastor, I still took counseling afterwards.
Right.
And even being in isolation, I still took counseling and listed of counseling. And he said it wasn't you. He walked away from God.
Right.
He walked away and he admitted it. He walked away. It was pride. So God put me in isolation because I needed to be prepared for who he sent me.
Okay.
And I never forget because I was like, Lord, I don't want to get married again. It's just me and you. It's just me and you. Let's travel the world. Let's do this. It's just me. I got a good job. It's just me and you. I don't need
Right.
nobody. Uh, and I was like, and this is what I said. I said, I don't need nobody. I'm good. And he said, that's not what I had for you. You are
Right.
you are wife material. That's not the plan I have for you. And I was like, oh, okay,
Mm.
okay. And my husband, my current husband, and I see why he put me in isolation because I was still damaged from that
Yes.
relationship because I had all hopes and I just knew it was a God relationship.
Hmm. So
So I was like, go ahead.
so when you got married the first time, you knew that God ordained that, or did you? Because sometimes we get married and we don't really ask God or hear from God or whatever, but it's what we want. And so,
I don't I'm be honest, I never forget walking down the aisle and my dad was like, you don't have to do this.
oh,
He was like, the car's right out there. We can go get in it. And I was like, and I had the nervousness, I had the flutters, but I just thought I was nervous. You know what I mean?
the jitters,
So
wedding jitters.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But when I look back, I'm like, maybe that was a sign. You know what I mean?
Your dad knew something.
Yeah, he did. Because he was the whole time, he was like, you don't have to do this. The car's out there. We can just go. And I never forget when he handed me off, he said, she has a father.
Mm,
You don't have to, she doesn't need to be re-raised, because my ex-husband was 15 years older than me.
okay. Okay.
So he said that, and I was just, it was a moment, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know if I was caught up in because I had a very, what my sister said, Barbie doll wedding.
Right.
So I don't know if I feel like I really believe there was some signs there and I just overlooked, to
And a
be
lot of
honest.
times, you know what? It's not a lot of times what a lot of us do. I'm guilty of overlooking, in a relationship, things that can be to somebody else blaring or very obvious, or they could see it, but you just so caught up in your emotions and what's going on, instead of going to and listening to the older people, especially if they're older and they done been down that road, and they could see a whole lot of stuff you can't see, and we don't take their advice. We don't,
Exactly.
because we just want to dive in. We just don't, or we don't want to be alone, or we don't want to be this, or we want to have somebody because your girlfriend got somebody or your cousin got somebody. And, we want to
Mhm.
have somebody, want to be special. But
Yeah.
you better pray and ask God about that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. From that into the when I
Mhm.
when gosh told me, no, you're married to material, you're gonna be a wife. I start putting down, okay, Lord, if you got somebody from me, these are my requirements.
That's
This is, and I need you to bless it. And I
right.
never forget, because I was still in isolation. I never forget, one of my good friends said, girl, that person don't exist. Because I was like, I want somebody emotional. I want somebody that's going to be attentive. I want somebody that's not going to be prideful. Someone that's going to be, just cover me,
Right. Right.
and I give that back. And now, my friend said, that person, you're going to have a hard time. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Whatever God has for me, I am for it. But what
Okay.
God
Mhm.
has for me, not what
Mhm.
Janice has for herself, what
Right.
God has for me, because that's the route I'm going. And I'm listening and I'm looking, and I got all signals and all antennas up and just listening and looking. I'm not gonna, you know, miss a sign. I'm
Right.
going right in, Lord, is this you? And I never forget, I met my husband, and I was still I was still like, I don't know, we'll
Hesitant.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
still
I
very
blame you.
hesitant, because
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not trying to do this again. I'm
Right.
not trying to go down this road again. I was still very hesitant. And I was like, because I'm good, because I'm a person, I can be good with me. I know how to
Right.
have fun with me. I know how to love me.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do things by myself. I travel the world by myself.
Yes.
I have no problem with being with me.
Right. I understand
So I
that.
was like, yeah, I was like, I'm good, Lord. It's just me and you. And so I was like, and my husband, he was sure. He came to the table. He told me, he laid his cards down. He told me what he wanted. And I said, and I did. I said, well, let me tell you, there's a lot of layers to me.
Right.
And I need somebody to love every layer.
Mm.
I just laid and I said, because, I've been there, and
Right.
he had been there too. So when both of our first time. So, and then when my family met him, I never forget, immediately my dad and my mom was like, yep, he's it. And I was like, well, let's see. I was still hesitant. I was like,
Right.
yeah, because I had went through that trauma time,
Right.
I mean, just, so I was like, we'll see. And I'm praying. I'm really praying. God said, I isolated you so you could be mature. You can learn. I had to get a dog. I got a dog. God gave me a dog because he said, I want you to learn how to love unconditionally. I want you to learn
Right.
how to, when things don't go your way, I mean, that dog taught me everything. Seriously. Gave
Right.
me I learned patience. I got expanding of patience,
Mm.
unconditional, like, just like, I was like, oh, okay. I saw I saw what the dog was supposed to teach me.
Mm,
I learned how to have the unconditional love. Not
right,
just that, I learned that, yeah, God was just preparing me for the next phase of my life
right. Yes.
with my mate. And the
Mhm.
thing is, I had to go through that. I had to go through that. And one of the things I learned is just because they said they're Christian and go to church
Mhm.
does not mean that they're applying it to their life and they're really living out that life. You know what I mean?
That is true. It's all about
Yeah,
relationship, not just going to church. It's about you having a relationship with God. And that's the most important thing. And being able to hear him and being obedient to him. Those are the
exactly.
key points. Yes. If you're
And
not
the
doing
thing
that,
is,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. I was gonna say, and the thing is, I was there.
Mhm.
They said they had a relationship, but the discernment I had, I didn't use it with I it came later in the
Right.
relationship because I had to have it. Because I when I tell you for 5 years I was on my knees, I'm telling you, God had me on my knees. And yeah. Woo, that was that was it was a trying time. I never forget when I got out of it and everything was final. God let me go back to the church because I was away from the church. And when I went back, everybody was like, because my name was slandered. He said a
Oh,
lot of horrible things about me. And I
mm,
never forget the pastor was like, don't worry, we can see through that. And that's why he removed me and isolated me for 2 years. But when I went back, everybody was like, oh my gosh, you look like you got younger. You look so happy at peace. And I was, because I knew that it was God who blessed that that division.
right. You know what? So that is beautiful. It's a beautiful story. And this is great. I'm glad that you got direction from the Lord and that everything went well according to his will and his purpose. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful interview. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us. For anybody's listening, tell us real quick where you're going to be and how we can find you and what is going on, because you're a coach. So share with us real quick.
Yes, you can find me at www.healthwellness.expert. I am a nutritionist and a personal trainer and a life coach. I have a my seasonal detox, summer detox coming up, which I do a seasonal detox. It's starting June 22nd, and we end the first day of summer.
All
So
right.
yeah, so if you go to my website, just send me a message on my website and I will send you all the information. That's how you can reach me. Everything you need to know on about me and contact is on my website. Mhm.
You know what? Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of the summit. I really do appreciate you coming and sharing your story, your journey with Christ and how he's healed you and that he
Yeah.
allowed you to remarry and now you're happy and you don't have all that weight.
Yes, 12 years in, 12 years in.
That is a
Yes.
blessing. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So
You're
grateful to be here.
welcome.